The furious goddess Amphanella, in her beastly green giantess form, grabbed Ortis around the waist and raised him in front of her fanged face. He was still shaken by seeing Mythal dragged off by Tarsa, but tried to stay ready for whatever he needed to do to survive.
You come to my beast farm, destroy it, kill all my monsters, my family, even bring that wretch Tarsa to my home. Do you have any reason why I should not tear your limbs off right now?
Ortis's fingers were twitching to draw back his bow and fire, but hearing her speak ill of the Imperium Pantheon's leader gave him hope of an easier way out of this ordeal. I don't have any reason that's likely good enough. Honestly, I never actually thought about anyone caring about the monsters here. Mythal and I came here to destroy all the monsters because we knew the Imperium Pantheon comes here to take them and use them to do their bidding and hurt innocent people like me and Mythal. She roared and pulled him closer.
You really think yourself innocent after this?
She gestured at the still burning farm and the smoldering corpse of Fenrir. You're right. I should have thought this through more, gotten more information before just firing the Devastator arrow at this place. But if there is any part of you that also hates Tarsa and her pantheon, then as much as I don't deserve your mercy after what I've done to your home, the only way you can ever stop Tarsa is by letting me go to find a way to get Mythal back from her. Mythal is of the Godqueller bloodline. She can actually kill gods. She can kill Tarsa if she's free to train enough to eventually beat her. Amphanella just stared at Ortis for a moment, her breath on his body feeling hot and foul even in the swell of smoke and flames around them. She then hurled him to the ground. His shoulder slammed the ashen dirt and he rolled a few feet away before rising to his knee, ready to draw his weapon. But there was no need. Amphanella was transforming back into her resting form as a blonde, young-looking goddess. She marched towards Ortis, saying, "The blood of my brothers and many of my friends is on your hands, and that is not something that can be forgiven. I am honor-bound to kill you and your sadistic ally. But Tarsa and her pantheon are a blight on this world greater than any. If you do defeat her, then I suppose I can allow you to live." She reached Ortis, grabbed his shirt, and raised him to his feet, leering at him with glowing green eyes. "But I will not be leaving your side until you have done the deed, and if you try to back out, you die. Understand?" Ortis nodded. Yes, of course. So, wait, are you actually going to help me?" She released her grip and her angry, tear-stained face slightly softened, glancing back at Fenrir, away from Ortis. She muttered, "The Norns did tell me I'd be leaving this place, one way or another." Ortis asked, Sorry, what was that?" She turned back to him. "Yes, I will help, but only because it seems we're in agreement at least that the Imperium Pantheon must be stopped. And if that terrifying friend of yours does truly have the power to kill them, then I suppose we do need to rescue her from wherever she has been taken. So how do we discover where exactly that is?" "Ares will know." She raised an eyebrow at Ortis. "Ares? As in the Greek god of war?" "Yes, he's been helping us," Ortis said, looking around the still burning farm. "What are you looking for?" Ortis began walking around, still searching, as he said, "Ares has a tendency to just pop up, especially after we've killed monsters. He shows up, usually eating something, gives us some helpful information, then just leaves." She nodded, now questioning her decision to help. "Right, and how many bumps to the head have you taken on this quest so far?" No, he's right." They both turned to see Ares marching out of the flames, but for once not eating anything. Instead, his arms were crossed, staring at Ortis.
"Come on, what did I say, kid? What did I tell you would happen if you came here?"
Ortis marched towards him. I know, but I can't change it now, and Tarsa took Mythal."
And right after you two were macking on each other too, that's gotta sting. And I gotta say, weird time for you two to have your first kiss on a battlefield full of burning corpses you just blew up.
Ortis's concern turned to anger. "Wait, you were here and you didn't help?"
Kid, if I thought I could take Tarsa in a fight, I would have done it a long time ago. If I'd stepped in, all that would have happened is I'd be getting dragged off to Yomi no Kuni now too.
Before Ortis could say anything else, Amphanella asked, "So wait, you really do just show up to give the mortal odd bits of useful information?"
What can I say? Ortis here is usually pretty smart about what he does with the info. Thought he and Mythal were actually gonna get the Pantheon eventually. But now I guess probably not.
Amphanella looked more confused still. I could have sworn you were on the Imperium Pantheon, Ares. Is your daughter not Zeus's right hand? Ares snapped.
Harmonia doesn't know what she's doing. Once Zeus is taken care of, she'll come back to her senses.
Ortis was now confused too. Wait, Ares, your daughter is working with Zeus?
That's not your concern, kid. What is the fact that you just let the Godqueller get dragged off to the same place as all the other gods that Tarsa and her cronies don't like. They've probably got an extra special place in there just for Girly to make sure she never sees the light of day again. I wouldn't even want to try breaking into that place with the Godqueller, let alone without her.
Ortis's eyes opened wide. But would you if we did have a Godqueller? If we had someone else in the Godqueller bloodline to go in with, would you come with us then?
I guess so, kid, but don't think you mortals live long enough for you to wait around for pairs of gods to make a few new generations of babies.
He shook his head. We don't have to wait, we can get another right now. Can you transport us to the woods south of New Athens?
Sure, but do you really expect me to believe you think you know where to find another Godqueller out there?
I don't think I know she's there. Mythal has a sister, Lorna. Prior to leaving the beast farm, Ortis and Ares helped Amphanella go around and find any monsters that had been left alive. There were only a scattered few. Some Amphanella just left be, but she did take the time to tend to a creature that had the body of a lion and the head of an elephant. She put her hands on it, and the godly runes on her forearm started to spin. Her hands glowed green, and the burns on the creature's legs healed. She then pressed her head against that of the grateful creature and said, "Find a new home, Yali. Be safe." As she walked away from the creature, Ortis asked, Did you care this deeply for all the monsters here? Not all. Some were simply mindless beasts made by the gods to do their bidding. Those I was simply keeping fed and happy to ensure they didn't cause trouble. But others were kind and intelligent and did not deserve the fate you forced upon them. Ortis bowed his head slightly. I understand. I should have known better than to kill en masse like that. Yes, you should have, she said, then turned her head away from him and quietly muttered, But perhaps I brought this fate upon the farm by denying my destiny. Sorry, what was that? Ortis asked. I said nothing you need concern yourself with, she said, then turned again. But the truth will likely be revealed to him eventually. Sorry, do you do this muttering sort of thing a lot? She turned back again. Don't try to get to know me, Ortis. We are not friends. Just two beings with a temporary allegiance until you have repaid your debt by seeing the Pantheon slain. Once again, she turned. But perhaps I may have to embrace this new chapter and even new allies as part of my destiny. Ortis nodded. Okay, I'm gonna just stop asking what you're saying, I think. Soon after, Amphanella grabbed a few things from the ruins of her home. Then, they gathered up with Ares, who transported them in a swirl of smoke as close as they could to the location Ortis had described. They appeared in the forest south of New Athens, right near a cliff ledge, hanging over more woods. Ortis looked along it and saw, off in the distance, the isolated home where he'd first met Mythal. They sped off towards it and soon were approaching the front door, which was just an open entryway. The actual door was still torn off its hinges and laying in the main room, as it had been when Ortis and Mythal had left. Just inside, right where she'd been when he'd left, was a woman reading in a chair who looked similar to Mythal, but leaner and with much shorter hair. She didn't look up, but clearly heard them approaching. If you're intruders, could you come back when my sister is here? It's her turn to deal with intruders. Ortis stepped in the door. Lorna, I'm Ortis. I'm the one Mythal left with. I'm here because Mythal is in trouble. You're her biological sister, right? You two have the same parents? Ortis asked, seeing the white markings on her and knowing that the answer had to be yes. We are indeed true sisters, but that does not mean I intend to leave here and help you get Mythal out of whatever trouble she's gotten herself into. I'm sure she can get herself out of it, Lorna replied, flipping the page of her book. Ortis stepped in closer. No, she can't. She's been taken and is being held and probably even tortured in a horrible place, and we need you to help get her out. You're of the Godqueller bloodline too, so you can kill gods just like her. We need that skill set with us to break in and get her out. You have to come with us, please. I do not have to come with you, nor am I interested. Mythal may crave the thrills of hurling herself into battle, but I do not. I'm sure wherever she is temporarily trapped is all part of the fun for her. Ortis's concern started turning to fury. You really don't care about her at all, do you? That was the first time Lorna actually looked up from her book. Of course I care about her, she is my sister. I just think if she gets herself into trouble, she can get herself out of it. I don't believe you. Either you're lying about caring, or you're just too lazy to prove it. And you're going to have to prove it eventually, because Mythal sure doesn't think that you care. Lorna clapped her book shut and stood up. Don't pretend you know my sister better than I. We may have our squabbles, but she knows I care. No, she doesn't, Ortis said, stepping closer to Lorna. She said she thinks that everyone she's cared for has abandoned her, her parents, and you. I'm not going to do that to her, though. Whether you're willing to help or not, I'm going to free her. And when I find her, you can either be by my side, proving that you care about your sister, or you can be here reading and I can tell her that when we ask for your help, you refuse to get off your butt and lend a hand to someone who actually cares about Mythal. A plume of white smoke suddenly burst from Lorna's eyes. She snatched Ortis by the neck and raised him off the ground. Amphanella took a step towards them, but Ares put an arm out to hold her back. Lorna just leered at Ortis furiously, but while he was feeling some, he refused to let any fear show in his eyes. He just kept thinking of freeing Mythal. Soon, the smoke faded from Lorna's eyes, and she asked, Mythal truly thinks I don't care? Trying to hold himself up on Lorna's arm, Ortis replied, Yes, so prove to her that you do. Slowly, Lorna set him down and released his neck. She glanced back over to Amphanella and Ares, then back at Ortis. What were all your names again? Over the next half hour, sat around a small wooden table with the others, Ortis explained everything that had happened since he and Mythal had left on their adventure. When he finished, Ares then started in on what they could expect from Yomi no Kuni, the Shinto deity underworld Mythal was now trapped in.
Yomi is watched over by Izanami, who is one of Tarsa's favorite little cronies on the Pantheon. Izanami had been trapped in Yomi by a giant boulder that blocked the only exit in the Japanese Izumo province. But, using her so-called beast sphere, Tarsa gave her whole Pantheon the ability to transport themselves in and out of Yomi.
Amphanella interrupted. A boulder? A big rock was enough to keep a goddess trapped?
Trust me, this is a really big boulder. Plus, it's squeezed between the entrance of Yomi and another wall, so there's no way to move it from the inside. From outside, with 3 gods pushing it sideways, we should be able to move it enough to get in. But then there's always the risk that Izanami finds out we're in there, and gets Tarsa or someone else on the Pantheon to push the boulder back in place and traps us in there with the rest of the gods stuck inside. Plus, there's sure to be some pretty tough monsters guarding the gods in there from escaping. Probably plenty of extra ones put on Mythal, too. I've heard rumors that the storm spirits called the Ikazuki and the Hags of Yomi are keeping watch over everybody. But who knows? Could be anything at this point.
Lorna rolled her eyes. Wonderful. Do you have any good news for us, then? Any hope at all that this could actually work? I have sparred with Mythal and she's forced me to, but I should point out that whatever fighting skills she had is likely far beyond how I'll be able to contribute should we face anything that needs slaying. Ares replied,
Main thing we need you for is if Izanami shows up. I can take her one-on-one, but I can't actually kill her like you can. As long as I hold her down, all you gotta do is stab her. Seems like the Godqueller powers only really need you to land one clean hit on a god to kill him. As far as good news goes, nope, I can't think of much. Ortis and Mythal really stuck their foot in it by getting Tarsa to come after them too soon.
Ortis nodded. I know, but you are overlooking some potential good news. There are, dozens, maybe hundreds of gods trapped down there that obviously also have beef with the Imperium Pantheon. If we free some of them from whatever Izanami is doing to them, I'm sure they'd be willing to help us at least fight off whatever monsters are down there to help them all escape. So all of a sudden you're eager for the help of gods? Did you and my sister not leave here with the intent to murder them all? Ortis nodded again. Yes, granted I did, but obviously some are interested in doing good, he said, gesturing to Ares and Amphanella. Plus, I've recently been reminded why generalizing every being, or creature, of a certain category as being worthy of slaughter is not a morally sound opinion to act on. Amphanella turned her head from him angrily and muttered, I want to hate him for what he did to Fenrir and the others, but perhaps it is my destiny to fight alongside—
Oh, what's that you're saying?
Ares interrupted. Nothing, she said aggressively. Ortis then said, It seems like that's just the thing she does sometimes, like she's processing her thoughts out loud. If you don't want people to hear your thoughts, why not just think them like a normal person? Would you all stop delving into my personal business and get back to the task at hand? Ares turned back to Ortis.
Betting on any gods down there helping us is a bit risky, kid. Even if they did want to, odds are pretty good Izanami has some way of making sure they don't fight back.
Well, we're going to have to free Mythal from whatever that is, so when we figure out how to save her, we can free some of the other gods to help us escape. Plus, once Mythal is free, she'll be a huge help too. Ares looked Ortis up and down.
You know, kid, I gotta say, this is a really stupid plan. But I'm impressed by how confident you seem that it's all gonna work out.
It has to work out. We have to save Mythal, and dying trying isn't an option. Amphanella, impressed by Ortis's assurance, said, I may have some things that can help us. Amphanella set a sheathed sword on the table, along with what looked like a leather collar, with a gold sigil of 3 intertwined triangles in its center. The blade is Dainsleif. It was forged with magic by dwarves. It obviously cannot slay gods, but injuries from it never heal on any beasts or mortals it strikes. Be warned though, once drawn it cannot be resheathed until it has taken a life. Lorna asked, And why would that be the case? I don't know. Perhaps the dwarves who made it were very stubborn. Amphanella then pointed to the collar. This is Gleipnir. It was once used to restrain my now deceased stepbrother Fenrir. It can weaken the might of any being bound by it, even gods, and it grows or shrinks to fit the limbs it is being bound upon. If you bind Izanami or any other god with it, they will be much easier to defeat. Ares grinned.
Well, you should have opened with the fact that you had stuff like this. Maybe this will all work out after all. You planning to use that sword yourself, or mind if I swing it around?
I'll be using my Yotirian form, as you saw earlier, in which I do not need a weapon. Whips spawn from my wrists, with which I can do plenty of damage, as well as with my claws, tail, and teeth. I had thought the Godqueller may use Dainsleif. As you've said, her assaults can kill gods quickly, but not beasts, so this could increase her capabilities against monsters we may face. Lorna then stepped over to a shelf with many books on it and reached on top to grab something bound in cloth. She tossed it to the table and it unrolled to reveal 2 daggers. I'll be using these just to really rub it in Mythal's face that I care for her and remind her that how dare she doubt that. She crafted these for me when she was a child. I haven't used them other than in sparring with her, but at least I am somewhat proficient with them. Ares shook his head.
I appreciate the sentimental value, but these are some really ugly looking weapons.
Oh, you don't say. Did you miss the part where I said a child made them? Regardless, they are what I'll be using, I decided, Lorna said with an irritated sneer. Ares then grabbed them off the table.
Okay, fine, but at least let me give him some extra juice.
He pulled down the front of his armor to reveal a glowing rune on his chest. He tapped it and spun it while clutching the knives. His body started to glow with red mist. Crimson swirls of glittering dust started to emit from the blades. They continued to have a light red aura around them, even after Ares' own glow dimmed, and he set them back on the table.
There you go, Godqueller number 2. Weapons fortified by me can't break. At least for a few weeks, give or take. If you're gonna fight with garbage, it might as well be unbreakable garbage.
Lorna raised the blades, looking mildly impressed. Ares took Dainsleif and summoned a spear for his other hand. Ortis was ready as he could be with Suriastra in hand. Amphanella stepped outside and transformed into her Yotirian giant form.
Alrighty,
Ares said, cracking his neck.
I could get us right to the boulder, but once I get it moved out of the way, be ready for anything.
Ortis nodded. Thank you, Ares, and all of you for helping. I'd be going whether anyone was willing to help or not, but I know my odds of success alone would have been next to nothing. Amphanella turned away and muttered, He is so much more honorable than I had assumed when he came to my home.
Seriously, Cal, you gotta stop that.
Ares interrupted.
We can all sorta hear you, but not really, so either be more subtle or less.
He then turned back to Ortis.
No problem, kid. That scary girlie has kinda grown on me too, and I still want to get around and against her someday.
Ares then summoned his swirl of black smoke around them all, and as it cleared, they were in a canyon with a massive boulder wedged into it. But it was no longer in front of the cavernous entrance to Yomi. Seconds after they appeared, a hovering, pale woman with smoke and red eyes floating behind her rose out of the cave, wielding a naginata, a long-bladed pole. She grinned far too eagerly at the group. So, Ares, you are helping the Godqueller and her pet, just as Tarsa suspected. She then set her eyes on Lorna. Interesting. We were not aware that there was another, but we appreciate you bringing it to us. Did this pasty old crone just refer to me as an it? Izanami started floating back down into the cave. Enter my domain if you wish. Doing so will only make my job that much easier. She vanished, and a sparking electric light was emitting from just inside the cave. Ares clenched his fist around his weapons.
Well, bad news is she knew we were coming, but at least we know what we're up against. That sparking has gotta be the Ikazuki. Amphanella, you stay out here and keep anyone from rolling the boulder closed on us. We should start by letting Ortis shoot some explosive arrows into the cave before
But as Ares was revealing his plan, a new figure stepped out of the caves, and it wasn't an Ikazuki. It was a young woman with wavy blonde hair holding what seemed to be Zeus's fabled thunderbolt, sending sparks soaring all around her. Ares fell silent. The goddess then said, "Hello, Ares. Grandfather sends his regards." Ortis soon realized that, while she looked far more aggressive than a goddess of harmony and concord should, this was in fact Harmonia, daughter of Ares, and she looked like she was ready for a fight. You know, this series was originally going to be 6 episodes, and now there is no way that's going to happen. I'm thinking closer to 10 or maybe 12 episodes.
But we'll just have to see how it goes, I guess.
If you enjoyed this and you haven't seen the first 4 episodes, I'd recommend going back to the beginning. Or maybe check out the first 2 episodes of The Summoner's Beasts, because episode 3, which is a community redraw, is going to be coming out on Monday. And another episode in that series soon after, because I'm splitting the community redraw for this month into 2 different episodes. Or you may also want to check out Dresden, Oakland and the birth of the RAS Foundation, because that episode also kinda leads into the next Summoner's Beasts episode. Man, I think in the last 3 months, if we count Mythal Lethal, I've probably done as many Multiverse Tales episodes in that time as I did like all of last year. And honestly, it feels really good. But anyway, besides that, that's all for today, except of course for ending this video on some kind of positive or inspiring note. And this is one that I've basically used recently as the backbone for a few Vigilance episodes. But I was reminded of it again this week, why persistence and being okay with publicly failing over and over and over again to eventually get to a success is so incredibly satisfying. I've been going to the trampoline park and teaching myself how to do flips for a few months now, and for 3 weeks I was consistently failing to get a front flip 180, just over and over and over again, failing, hurting myself a couple times. And finally this week I got the flow of them after being there for an hour and a half. I was exhausted, but I got it, and I just did them for another hour. Completely wore myself out, but now I know that I can do them. So the point is, don't be afraid to fail a lot on your path to something that you really want to succeed at, because all the failures just make it that much more satisfying when you start winning. I hope that's inspiring. I love you all, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye.